You had a really good month, maybe the best month you have had in a while. But for a moment, just a moment, you let yourself think, okay, this is it. This is the shift. This is what it feels like when things start to change. And then the card needs fixing, or a client disappeared, or you found yourself spending in a way you can't quite explain, or the next month was quieter than what you expected. And somehow, when you looked at your numbers, you were right back to the same place you always ended up. And you told yourself, it was just bad timing, or our economy, or that you need a better strategy, a better offer. Maybe you invested in another course about how to make more money. Maybe you worked harder. Maybe you pushed yourself in ways that cost you more than they gave you. And still, the ceiling. Here's what I want you to hear today. And I mean this with everything I have. It is not about your strategy. It is not about your work ethic. It is not your offer, and it is not the market, or your niche, or your content. It is a subconscious program that has been running since long before you started your business, your career, or your spiritual journey. And until you understand what it is and where it came from, no amount of strategy is going to move it. That's what we are going into today. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Aligned and Manifesting. Today, we are talking about money. Specifically, why so many women who are intelligent, capable, spiritual aware, and genuinely ambitious keep bumping into the same invisible ceiling, no matter what they do on the outside. Now, I want to say something before we dive in. If you've been in the personal development space for any amount of time, you probably heard the phrase, abundance mindset. You've probably done the gratitude work, the visualization around money, maybe even some scripting or affirmations around financial goals. And if those things haven't fully shifted the pattern for you, I don't want you to think that means that they don't work or that you are doing it wrong, because that's not true, or that you are somehow less spiritually aligned than someone else. What I want to offer you today is a deeper layer of understanding. Because the money ceiling most women experience is not an affirmation problem. It is not even a primary mindset problem in the way we usually think about mindset. It goes much deeper than that. Into the subconscious, into the nervous system, into your identity, into the messages you absorbed about what money means and who gets to have it, long before you ever had a say in any of this. So when you understand that, and I mean really understand it, everything starts to make a different kind of sense. So let's begin. To introduce you to a concept that I think is going to reframe the way you see your relationship with money. I call it the financial thermostat. You know how a thermostat works, right? You set the temperature, and the system works to maintain that temperature. If that room gets too warm, it cools it down. If it gets too cold, it heats it back up. The goal of the thermostat is not to make the room comfortable. The goal of the thermostat is to maintain the temperature it has been set to. That's it. Now, your subconscious mind has a financial thermostat. It was set a long time ago, not by you consciously, not by your goals or by your desire or your vision board. It was set by the accumulated experiences, messages, and emotional association you absorbed about money through your life. And just like a real thermostat, its one job is to maintain the set temperature, to keep your financial reality within the range it has decided is normal for you. And here's where it gets really interesting and really important. When your income starts to rise above that set point, the thermostat kicks in. Not because life is punishing you, but because your subconscious is doing exactly what it was programmed to do. It starts looking for ways to bring the temperature back down. Well, that could be the unexpected bill that arrives just as your account looks healthier than usual. That's the impulse to spend in ways you can't fully justify right after a good month. That's the client who drops off, or the quiet month that follows the great one. Or the business decision you make that seems logical at the time, but somehow undoes the process you just made. That's the undercharging, the holding back, the procrastinating on the thing that would genuinely move the needle, even though you know it would move the needle. None of that is bad luck. None of that is the universe being unkind. That is your thermostat regulating. That is your subconscious pulling you back to the financial temperature it understands as safe and familiar. And here's the crucial thing I need you to understand. You cannot out-strategize a thermostat. You can learn every marketing technique, every sales framework, every business strategy that exists on planet Earth. And if the thermostat has not been reset, you will keep returning to the same range because the thermostat is more powerful than any of the strategy. It is working from a deeper level of your psyche that any conscious plan can reach. So the question is not, how do I make more money? The question is, what is my thermostat set to and why? This is one of the reasons I am such a believer in subliminal work for money blocks especially, because if the thermostat is set in the subconscious, and it is, then you need tools that can actually reach that level. Affirmations work on the conscious mind, but subliminals bypass the analytical filter and speak directly to the subconscious, where the money program actually lives. Mine are designed specifically for this kind of deep reprogramming. Identity, receiving, worthiness, safety around abundance. So if you've been trying to shift this with a surface level tools and not seeing results, the link is in the show notes. It's one of the most accessible places to start. So let's talk about where the thermostat gets set. Because understanding the origin of the pattern is one of the most powerful things you can do. Not so you can blame the past, but so you can stop being unconsciously governed by it. I like to think of it as a contract, a subconscious contract with scarcity, one that was drawn up long before you had the awareness, the vocabulary, or the power to refuse it. You didn't sign it knowingly, but it has been running your financial life ever since. And here's where that contract actually gets written. The first place is your family system. Think about the home you grew up in, not just where there was money or not, but what was the atmosphere around money? Was money a source of stress? Something people argued about? Was there a constant low-level anxiety about whenever there would be enough? If so, your subconscious learned something very important. It learned that money equals tension. That financial instability is the baseline. And as strange as it sounds, that tension became familiar. And familiar to the nervous system feels like home. Or maybe money wasn't scarce in your household, but there was a different message. Maybe wealth was something slightly suspect, something other people had. Maybe phrases like, money doesn't grow on the trees, or who do they think they are, or I need to work hard to get money. They were part of the soundtrack of your childhood. If so, your subconscious get a very clear message. Having more puts you outside the tribe. And belonging to the tribe is not just a social preference. It's a survival instinct. So, some part of you has been keeping your finances at a level that doesn't risk that belonging. Consciously, of course, widely, constantly. The second place is emotional association. Money, for most of us, is tied to specific emotional memories that go way beyond numbers. Maybe you watched a parent work themselves to exhaustion for money and learned that wealth cost you your health, your presence, your joy. Or maybe there was a time your family had more and it created a difficult period in other ways. So your subconscious made a connection, then more money means something gets disrupted. Or maybe you watch someone close to you, who you loved, to be changed by money in a way that frightened you. Maybe financial success in your family meant absence. Maybe it meant conflict. Maybe it meant pressure that nobody knew how to handle. And these associations are not logical. They don't have to be. The subconscious mind doesn't deal in logic. It deals in pattern and feeling. And whatever pattern it learned to connect with money, it will continue to run that pattern until it receives new information. The third place is something that I think is particularly important for the women listening to this podcast. They are the messages we absorbed about women and money in the society. Because whether we are consciously aware of it or not, most of us grew up in the world that had very specific ideas about women's relationship with wealth. That it was unfeminine to want too much. That ambition was something to be softened and justified, that charging full price for your work was somehow greedy, that a woman who prioritizes her own financial expansion is selfish. These are not just your beliefs. You didn't invent them, but they may be running underneath your financial decisions in a way you haven't fully examined yet. They are worth looking at. Because the woman who has truly done this work doesn't apologize for her prices. She doesn't undercharge to make other people comfortable. She doesn't shrink her financial vision because she's worried about what it will look like. And she gets to that place not through aggression or force, but through genuinely understanding that her value was never the problem, the programming was. And the deepest layer of all, identity. This one changes everything when it lands. You can only hold as much money as your identity believes you are worth. And read that again because it is important. Your identity, the deepest story your subconscious tells about who you are, has a financial correlate. It has a number attached to it. And if you earn significantly more than that number, it won't feel real. It won't feel like you. And the thermostat will bring you back down. This is why some people win the lottery and are back to their previous financial state within a few years. Not because they are irresponsible, well, some are, but because their identity hadn't been updated. The money expanded, but the identity didn't. And identity always wins. So the real work, is not making more money, it's becoming the version of you for whom that money is the natural expansion of who she is. I want to get personal for a moment, because this isn't just theory for me. There was a time when I kept hitting the same number, and I generally could not understand why. I was working, I was trying, I had the skills, and I had the desire. But there was this ceiling I kept brushing up against and then failing back from. And when I started doing the deeper work on this, when I started looking at what money meant in my home, I grew up, and what stories I absorbed about what women like me got to have, I found things I hadn't expected. I remembered that my parents went through bankruptcy. I remembered what it felt to be very, very poor. And what struck me was that this belief had been running silently underneath every financial decision I have ever made. I hadn't chosen it consciously. I had inherited it. And the moment I saw it clearly, not with judgment, but just with honesty, something shifted. Not overnight, but the ceiling started to feel less like a wall and more like a door. That's what I want for you today. Okay, so we have named the thermostat. We have looked at where the contract came from. And now I want to give you something real and practical to do with all of this. Because insight without action stays as an insight. And you deserve more than understanding. You deserve actual change. The first step is to identify your contract. In your own words, you cannot rewrite a belief you can't see. So, before you do anything else, I want you to get honest about what your subconscious actually believes about money. Not what you want to believe, what you actually believe. Here are some questions to sit with in your journal in a quiet moment. And if you're currently driving, I put it in a show note so you can do this later. First question: what did money mean in the house I grew up in? Was it safe? Was it stressful? Was it something other people had? What did I hear repeated about rich people or wanting more? About what money does to people? And this one, when I imagine constantly earning double what I earn right now, what does my body do? Does it feel exciting and open? Or does it tighten? Does it feel unsafe or wrong or like it would cost me something? That body response is your thermostat, showing you exactly where it's set. The tightening, if there is any, it's not a bad sign. It's an information. It's the contract showing you its terms. The second step is to separate the past from the present. That contract was written by a younger version of you in a completely different context, working with the information she had at the time. She was doing the best she could. The beliefs made sense then. They were protecting her from something real. But that context no longer exists. And you get to tell yourself that clearly. Not as an affirmation you repeat without feeling, but as a genuine, conscious acknowledgement. This belief was formed to protect me. I honor where it came from, and I'm safe to update it now. And that distinction matters. You're not betraying your past by choosing differently. You're honoring your growth. The third step is to start building identity evidence at the next level. This is where it gets practical and on daily basis, because the thermostat rises through consistent, small identity choices. Not through one dramatic decision. This might look like changing how you speak about money in your everyday life. Not forced positivity, honest expansion. Not I am so abundant when you don't feel it. But shifting from I can't afford that to that's not even where I'm choosing to put my money right now. Same financial reality, different identity statement. It might look like charging what your work is actually worth and sitting with the discomfort of that instead of dropping back down to familiar territory. The discomfort of charging more is the thermostat resisting. It passes, stay with it. It may look like letting money land before you immediately redirect it. When a payment comes in, give yourself a moment to actually receive it. Notice it. Let your nervous system register it as real before you move it into spending and allocating mode. This sounds small, I know, but it's not small. It is teaching your body that receiving is safe. Remember, thermostat is held in a place by the body. If financial expansion triggers anxiety, contraction, or that low-level dread, those responses need to be worked with, not pushed through. Regulate before any financial decisions. Breathe before you look at your numbers. Notice where the fear lives in your body and meeting it there, instead of letting it run your show from underground. Here's what I want you to understand about any of this. Raising your financial thermostat is not a 3-step process you do once. It's a practice. It's consistent, patient, intentional recalibration of who you are in a relationship to money. It is absolutely possible. Not through hustle, not through forcing yourself past your limits, through genuinely understanding that program and then slowly, lovingly, but firmly deciding to run a different one. You did not create these beliefs, but you are the only one who can change them, and you are more capable of that than you know. If you want to go deeper into this work, the actual reprogramming, the identity shifting, the nervous system piece, that's exactly what Rewire to Receive was built for. It's not a course about strategy. It's not about making a better offer or growing your audience. It's about the internal work that makes all of that sustainable. The conscious beliefs, the safety around receiving, the identity of the woman who holds abundance without guilt or self-sabotage. If what we have talked about today is landing for you, that course is your next step. Link is in the show notes. I want to close with something I mean generally. The fact that you have money ceiling is not evidence that you are less capable, less deserving, or less spiritually aligned than someone who doesn't. It is evidence that you are human, that you grew up in the world that handed you beliefs you didn't ask for, that your subconscious has been doing the incredibly loyal job of keeping you exactly where it was told was safe. And that is not a failure. That is your starting point. And here's the truth I want to leave with you, honestly and without softening it. The ceiling will not move on its own. Wanting it to move is not enough. Understanding why it's there is not enough either. Though it is the beginning, the ceiling moves when you decide, really decide, that you are willing to do the uncomfortable, the unfamiliar, the identity-expanding work of becoming someone for whom abundance is not a dream. It's just who she is. And that decision is yours. Nobody can make it for you, and no course, no coach, no podcast episode can do the work that lives on the other side of that decision. But when you make it, everything that has felt so fixed starts to become movable. And I've seen it. I lived it. And I've won that for you more than I can say. Thank you for being here for this one. Money is one of those topics that carries so much history, emotion, so much of our sense of worth. I hope today I helped you see it a little differently. Not as something you need to force or chase, but as something you get to become available for. That shift from chasing to receiving, that's where everything changes. I'll see you in the next episode.